tuned into InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, a video podcast series. Our episode starts right now. Here's your host, Dominique Vale.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, where you can check in for your dose of stigma-breaking, humor-filling, motivation-loving, life hacks, and motivational tips for all of the medically adultish people in life. Like always, I'm Dominique, the founder of InvisiYouth and the host of the InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, and we are in Season 3B, Episode 32, and I'm so excited because one of our guests today is someone that has been a part of the InvisiYouth community for years. We've been supporting each other. I know the InvisiYouth community is obsessed with her and her TikTok videos that have now become all of our favorite things to watch during this lockdown. It is dance teacher, founder of the UK nonprofit Project Parent, model and disability activist Kate Stanforth. Living with ME, which is myalgic encephalomyelitis, also known as chronic fatigue syndrome, and other chronic illnesses, Kate has adapted to make her life accessible and inclusive, and growing into now being an ambulatory wheelchair user as well, being part of her daily life, has really expressed that through her social media of what that is for her. She set up Project Parent in 2014 with the aid to provide gift boxes to parents who stay in hospital over Christmas holiday looking after their children. Now they've donated over 1,500 boxes to 9 hospitals across England. And she's also taken her love of dance and evolved it into her wheelchair dancing, with this month even now launching Kate Stanforth Academy of Dance, which is a super fantastic thing. I'm excited we'll get to chat about. Her goal with Kate Stanforth Academy of Dance is to teach inclusive dance classes, online dance classes, and encouraging others to love dance, find community, and express themselves. Kate's even been featured in campaigns for sportwear brands like Kappa, the UK's Channel 4, and has had a mini documentary about her. Kate is literally a ace of all trades. I'm super excited to have her on. So Kate, welcome to the show.
What a beginning.
How are you?
Like, can you do that for everything? Like, that was just such a welcome that I feel like I need that bit recorded for wherever I go. If you could just send me that, and then if anybody would like to like introduce me at any time, I'm just gonna have that. I'm gonna be like, I'm done. Like, what? It's amazing. But yeah, hi.
That'll be your intro to your reel. You'll just hit play on your phone and we'll play it.
That was an amazing introduction. Like, yeah, incredible. Yeah, but yeah, so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, super excited. And we're going to jump right in playing one of our returning segments from season 1 of the podcast called Life Tinder Challenge.
Life Tinder Challenge. Swipe right.
Life Tinder Challenge is one of our returning segments with a bit of an upgrade from season 1, where we will combine my favorite witty kind of humor and informative chat, where Kate and I are going to swipe left and swipe right on some hot button topics that tend to follow the chronic illness and disability community. So as I mentioned in your intro, Kate, TikTok, are we swiping left or swiping right on it?
Oh, it's like a middle thing, because I love TikTok for the dancing and just being able to have fun, and I'm starting to grow on there just as a dancer, I guess, and being in the community there. But also it's just not good for disabled people. The algorithms they don't seem to work very well for disabled people. A lot of people are getting blocked. I've had videos taken down for everything from nudity, which I ain't nude on the platform, I'll tell you that now, I'm fully clothed, right down to, you know, bullying and everything. So TikTok isn't a disability friendly platform, and I'll say that right now, but it is a bit of fun, so I would just go with a use with caution. So I don't know, I would still say swipe. Is it right? Right's a good one.
I think right is good.
Yeah, I'll still go for swipe right, because I still like it, but they need a good talking to sometimes. They need someone to go in and tell them, like, come on, you need to do a little bit better. So we'll swipe right for now.
Very much agree. That was literally my answer, was I'll swipe right with a bit of swipe left caution on that one for sure. What about when people use the phrase, I know you probably get this a lot in your comments with your dance videos, when they say you inspire me? How do you feel about that one?
So it's a funny one, is that one, because a lot of people really hate being called inspiring and inspirational. It's a funny thing in the disability community. I'm okay with it if I've done something which would inspire someone else to do something. So if I've been dancing and then I'm inspiring somebody else to start dancing or start moving, or they didn't think that they were able to do, you know, activities or sports or something, then in that term, I'm absolutely okay with it. But if somebody said, like, oh, you're so inspirational, you managed to go to the toilet, or, you know, like an everyday activity, or you're so inspirational just for being disabled, then that's wrong. So it kind of really depends on the context for me. I'm fine, as I say, if I've done something and then they're going to do something because of it. But yeah, I don't particularly like it if it's just kind of said without kind of an action at the end of it. What do you think?
Always the same reason. I'm fine with it as long as there are other actions of mine to use that as an adjective of describing me. So I will always tell people, use that word in caution. It's an important word to begin with, to throw around lightly. So like you said, that's definitely something I always will lead with caution when you get that description. What about the social media like button? I know there's been a lot of platforms, even like Facebook, saying they might want to get rid of it. They have now all different emotional feelings you can add to liking something. So how do you feel about that?
I like the like button. I like being able to show people that I like things. I like the ability to be able to show all the different emotions involved. I mean, I still don't understand why there isn't dislike buttons on a lot of the channels. I can see why it would go either way, to be honest. But I like to be able to show people the little heart signs and the little care symbols and stuff. I think it's a good tool. So you're just scrolling through and you can't engage with people. I mean, liking's a very quick way to be able to show someone I've read it and I care. And that's important for us, for people with chronic illnesses who don't have the time to, you know, comment and start writing, I've seen it, I care, I understand. That's actually quite a lot of energy for us. So giving it a little like kind of shows I understand and I've read it. So, you know, don't get rid of that. That's silly. I don't know who thought of that.
I agree. Yeah.
Swipe left.
Yeah.
Left. There you go.
What about our last one I'm going to ask? What about virtual classes? I feel like I already know the answer to this, but how do you feel about virtual classes? Kate's like,
I do virtual classes. So I obviously love them. Yeah. So I love them, but they come with their downsides, of course. I was kind of pushed into virtual classes mainly because it was the only option because of COVID, and it's going to be, you know, a long time before the UK recovers from this. Especially, you know, disabled people are going to be the last people who are going to come out of being able to shield or having it's just a bit of a nightmare, really, isn't it? So virtual classes have been a saving point for all of us to connect, but it's not the same as being in person. And I never expect anybody to have that same connection with me, but it's better than nothing. That's what I always say. It's lovely to see people, and it's lovely to dance, and it's lovely to, you know, get to talk to people and learn new skills, but it isn't the same as going out, being in a lesson, having a bit of a laugh, having a coffee after, things like that. It'll be lovely when we get together, but I absolutely swipe right for virtual classes because, you know, they've made my dance school, so we obviously love them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it's a very proactive way to get involved, but definitely being able to make sure that, I always say, when you host something virtually, be open to people emailing you asking, can you put captions on your video, or can you maybe email me your note sheet, since I might need the information delayed, I might not process it fast enough. So at least know that you can provide sort of additional things. And this is even beyond, which we've learned from virtual working from home, which is how most of the chronic illness community has adapted to work pre-pandemic. It's as well as that we take that initiative to ask for additional things to make our work easier for us and to be able to execute. So now seeing a lot of the non-disabled and quote unquote healthy community knowing that they also can ask for those more accessible things is definitely a benefit when it comes to the virtual classes. So I agree. We're gonna swipe right on those now and in the future as well. And something I know Katie and I would be swiping right on all the time would be the fact that Katie and I love podcasts, right? I mean, obviously you're on one, so I know you enjoy a good podcast. And something with podcasts.
Oh, I absolutely love podcasts.
No, definitely. I was
yeah.
We're playing for those who aren't for those that are watching on YouTube, you can say the tiny bit of delay from me being in New Jersey and Katie being in England. We're having a bit of verbal tagging each other as we're trying to explain why we love podcasts so much. But the reason I was telling Katie why we love podcasts so much is because we're so excited. Our charitable supporter for this episode comes from the podcast community. They come from our podcast family that has been a part of supporting InvisiYouth Chat Sessions for the past 3 seasons, and they've now grown to expanding their brand and their podcasting platform. So talk about full service from the podcasting community. For all of our listeners and viewers wondering about getting into the podcast game, or even accelerating and elevating your own current podcast show you might host, we would suggest you check out Tandem, which is a new podcast hosting platform built by podcasters for podcasters. They offer hosting, advanced analytics, editing services, and a new way to connect with your fellow podcasting community. You get extra connected to other podcast shows by being a Tandem member. You can have real-time chat with other podcast hosts, invite others to be on your show, which we know that podcasting guests make great podcast hosts, and vice versa. And you can really expand if you are a current podcast host. Tandem will transfer your show easily by carrying over your subscribers and the holy grail for podcasters, your download analytics, which is, as we know, it is the be-all end-all for a podcast show. So please visit tandempodcasting.com today to learn more. That's Tandem, TANDEM podcasting.com. To learn more. You'll see that'll pop up. We'll have a little search bar at the website pop up on the bottom below, and it'll be in the episode description as well. So thank you, Tandem, for being such a wonderful supporter of the podcast. And now we're going to go into our next segment with Katie called Top Search.
Top Search. You got the Top Search.
Top search, so often, you guys know, when your family and friends are learning about your chronic illness or disability, they will tend to Google it. And while a lot of that is informative information, sometimes the autofill answers can be a little iffy. So we're going to be tackling questions all about philanthropy, since Kate and I are both female founders of nonprofits and talking all about the world of nonprofit work. So basically, Kate is going to be my personal Siri or my personal Alexa, depending on your preference, and I'm going to ask Kate all sorts of philanthropy questions. So to start off, why would you suggest somebody start a nonprofit versus a business?
I think that nonprofits nonprofits have started to help people more than businesses. I mean, you can obviously start a business which has got aims of helping people, but nonprofits are set up completely differently. And I mean, the reason that I started Project Parent was because of my backstory. I was in hospital a lot. I still am, to be honest, but I wanted to help the parents there who didn't have enough support. And that was where my idea came from. So I guess nonprofits they're just such a lovely thing to do and such a lovely way to give back. And in terms of getting grants and getting volunteers and things like that, it's much easier if you've got a nonprofit set up instead of a business setup, because if you're a business setup, it's slightly harder, whereas if it's a nonprofit, you know that all the money is going to a good cause, and all the money is obviously just getting put straight back out there so that it's going back into your cause, which is a really good thing. So
yeah, absolutely.
Start a nonprofit.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. It's a lot more about sort of the outside of the product. It's more about the end result of it. I remember when I started building InvisiYouth, it was very much, it was about a 6 or 8 month process of me meeting with other nonprofit founders or board members who were paid employees of the charities that they worked for, and them explaining why they would work for a nonprofit, knowing that all the reason they're even getting employed and financially employed is because every aspect of their job was providing a service for that the charity provided for free. So they said it was, even for them gaining funding to do their work, they said every aspect of my work has to be to provide for our mission for free. So that's why they took their role even as an employee so seriously as working for a nonprofit, because they knew why the funding they even were receiving was a direct result of all of that they were going to end up providing in their work. And I know you even kind of touched on it a little too, mentioning that you built and created the idea of Project Parent because you're part of that community, similar to myself with InvisiYouth. So what would you say are a couple advantages and disadvantages of being a part of the community that your nonprofit supports?
I think the advantages are, you know what you're, I guess it's not like you know what you do, but you just know your supporters and you know what you're going to do. So for me, I knew my target audience straight away, and I knew the people who I wanted to help. So I knew that I wanted to help parents, and I knew exactly what volunteers I wanted to get. So I wanted to get volunteers who had chronic illnesses, and because a lot of people in the UK didn't have volunteering opportunities if they had chronic illnesses, so good way to help with their CV and things like that. The downside for me was that it's so hard to help everyone, and I always feel like there's people that I'm missing out. And that's a really, really hard thing to tackle, because we get emails all the time saying, you know, oh, we get requests from hospitals who want the boxes, but we also get individual requests saying, oh, my gran or my someone or my parent is really unwell, they would love a box, it would really, you know, bring them some joy, and they're really ill and they've had such a hard time. And it's really hard as somebody who's very empathetic to look at that email and go, I'm really sorry, but we can't do that, and kind of draw the line. Because as a person, I want to help everybody, but with my nonprofit mind, you've got to have such clear views of what you're doing and also where your money's going to go, because as you probably know, it's hard to raise money. It's so hard to fundraise. And then when you get that money, it's other people's money that you're spending. So you have to make sure that it's right to the guidelines. And if you've said, well, you're going to help 9 hospitals in the UK, you are helping 9 hospitals in the UK, and that money is going exactly there. Mm-hmm. So it's one of these things where I would just say the hardest thing is you just have a too big a heart, and that sounds so sad, but I'm just like, I want to just give boxes out, but you can't, you don't have unlimited money. So yeah, I'm sure you've got a similar thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I knew we would have a similar answer to the advantages, because it's like you are your nonprofit's built-in test group, because you've lived the experience, especially for chronic illness. It's so varied based on diagnosis or the disability community and mental health, but you at least are a member of that giant sort of umbrella, so you're able to kind of be your own first test group, that you don't even bring anything to a board or your lead volunteers that hasn't already been through the questions and edits that they would naturally provide for you. So that is a major benefit. And like you said too, the disadvantage I always say to everyone is it's emotionally taxing, and it does take an emotional toll, because you know the experience of the people you're supporting. So when you can't support them all at the speed you wish you would, that your body can't run as fast as you would like it to. I always say that all the time. My body and my brain don't tend to match up in terms of how fast we want to get projects put out into the world. So that is always a thing I will always tell everyone, is if you're building a nonprofit that's supporting the group you're a part of, make sure you have a hobby of interest or a side job of some sort that is an outlet of release for you, that's able to kind of give you that refueling that you'll need when you do kind of get bogged down with the worries of your charitable work. I know for myself, it's fiction writing and doing more on the literature side. I know for you, Kate, that your dance now is a part of your work, but that also was something a part of your life as well, that would be a definite creative outlet of release if you were stressed with doing things for your charity as well.
Yeah, definitely. As you say, the emotional toll is a lot, and just having to organize everything as well. I'm especially bad at delegating. I love my volunteers, absolutely adore them, but I find it so hard to delegate stuff, because I end up doing it all myself.
Yes.
So just be aware that it will take all your time, because you're going to go, I could have done that though, so I'll just take that bit back and I'll do that, and don't worry about that because I'll just do these. Don't worry, I'll just pack 1,000 boxes in a weekend. And it's very difficult to delegate. Even if you plan to delegate, you're not going to do it. Just trust us. Delegation is very hard. So yeah, it's hard.
You know how it feels when your volunteers email you and ask for more work, when you're like, oh, I'm not giving them much to do, and they're like, Dominique, can we do more for you, please? So no, absolutely. And kind of going off of that too, for somebody who wants to be involved in philanthropy or nonprofit work, whether that's for building their resume, their CV, or to have this as their outlet of like an additional activity they do in their day to day, what are things that you suggest people look for when they're trying to get involved in the charity world?
I would always say start off by volunteering. Volunteering definitely built me and is pretty much who I am. So start off by volunteering. And then the next best thing is to kind of start helping with a similar community project, so you know what you're going in for. I just took one deep dive into what I fancied doing, and it was really difficult. And when I look back, I wish that I'd got some advice from someone who was running a similar project, so I could see even stuff like how you register to be a non-profit, how you do accounts, how you do, basic things like that I hadn't learned, because I missed a lot of my education at school. And not that they even teach you about accounts at school, but I'd lost a lot of the basic skills, and I didn't know how to do barely anything. But I had this big idea, and me being me, I was like, it's gonna work, we're gonna do it. So you really have to make sure that you don't just go like bulldozing in like I did and go, right, we're gonna do this, without having the support behind you. And one of the hardest things to do is to get the funding. And you do have to realize that the funding is absolutely crucial, if you don't have a good funding plan, it ain't going to work. So whether that's getting funding from individual supporters or businesses or, you know, grant schemes, you have to know where you're going. So yeah, you really just need to have a good business non-profit plan and take it from there. It's a lot of planning before any action really takes place.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like, I literally am laughing that in my highlighted notes in bold and underlined is funding and volunteering. So exactly the two main points you mentioned were the two for me as well. Was I was told by two of the four other charity founders that I had met while I was thinking of building InvisiYouth, they said, well, make sure you're spending that time researching, see if there's another charity out there that is what you want to build already. So you're not saturating the market even more, but you could actually use your skills in a high level position at another charity or in a business as well. So it was always do that level of research. I always say, if you can get through getting registered and getting tax numbers and getting through the nitty gritty portion of building it without crying, I always say, if you get to that point of actually finishing the not entertaining portions of building a nonprofit, you're 10 steps ahead of other people who just have that instinct of wanting to be philanthropic. And volunteering gives you, like you said, a big thing for us, it will always suggest to teenagers is, you love Instagram and Twitter, go on those social media apps and look at the hashtags for virtual volunteering or fundraising ideas or charity, philanthropy, nonprofit, because those are the hashtags InvisiYouth uses. I know even when you post about Project Parent, those hashtags are different in your posts for your charity versus your dance academy, because you're trying to bring in different people. And so we'll always say, go on your social media app and see the charities that are out there that are actually trying to seek doing things that you enjoy. Is definitely, like you said, it's a very helpful, especially now with everything being virtual schooling and virtually working from home as well, finding opportunities that other nonprofits are reaching and needing support in, that are things you could do from your home or from where you're living as well, is a key point of getting a few steps into the philanthropy world, and also can help you springboard even into a career outside of philanthropy, because you'll get to try other things out. You'll try maybe social media marketing with a charity or grant writing or research for a charity, and then you might figure out, I always hope one day I'll get a volunteer that loves talking about finances and funding. One day I will have a volunteer that is their core passion, because it will make my life so much easier than me being like on Google and on like funding sites going, all right, where are we going today?
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you with all of those. And yeah, definitely funding is just so difficult, but obviously the main part is getting the money and being able to turn that into your project. So it's what you've got to be knowledgeable about, and one of the main points. So yeah.
And absolutely, and even kind of going off of that before we go into our intermission segment, because this video podcast show is part of our virtual programming at InvisiYouth Charity. Everything we provide through our resources, our programming, and our leadership, and our campaign interaction is all provided for free throughout the year, because of donors like yourselves who are listening and your support network around you. So we always pop our donation link below. If you're able to donate, even we always say, listen to an episode, watch an episode, and donate what would be your cup of tea or coffee. You'll see Kate and I are drinking our hot beverages of choice throughout the episode as well. It definitely helps us keep all of our programming free. So every subscription, like button, 5 stars, review, we always joke that the 5-star button's the only one that works when you leave a review for us, wink wink, nudge nudge. So make sure you are able to provide that support for us through the podcast. We definitely appreciate it. And now we're going to go into everyone's favorite segment from the show. It's our intermission segment. It's So That One Time.
So that one time.
So that one time, as I always joke, is my favorite segment because I get to sit back and drink my coffee while Kate tells us a story that I'm hearing for the first time and with all of you as well. So, Kate, I'm going to sit back and relax and tell me a story.
I have struggled so much with this because I have got no idea which story to tell you. And I was talking to my mum about this last night. I was like, I need to tell a story tomorrow. I was like, which one should I tell? I went through like all of them and she's like, no, you can't say that on air. No, you can't say that one on air. And I was like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? So I'm gonna start with one about my assistant's dog, Spencer. So I've got a beautiful assistant's dog. You'll call them service dogs. He is literally, I would put him on camera, but he's outside my room. He's a black Labrador retriever and he's literally the most gorgeous dog in the world. I love him. First of all, I nearly didn't actually get him because when I went to meet him, the company that partnered me with him, they told me he was a golden Labrador retriever. And that is actually his breed, but I didn't realize that they could be black. So the trainer brought him in and I was like, he's not my dog. And they were like, yeah, but he can be a black lab, Kate. And I was like, oh, okay. So Spencer's a special type of dog. He's gorgeous. And his favorite place to go is Starbucks. Like, he absolutely loves Starbucks to the point where he recognizes the Starbucks sign when we go past Starbucks, which is a bit of an issue. So we took him to Starbucks and I get my like chai latte and he gets a puppuccino, which is basically just cream, like when it's a special occasion. Just so my trainers who might actually listen to this, like, it's a special occasion. He doesn't have this all the time. Don't take him off me. And we sat down and I was like having my drink and I was with my friends and we were busy like just having my drink, and I let Spencer off his lead. He just lies down on a bed, he's dead chill, and he like got up and he went to, there was a sofa behind us and there was this man who was turned the other way, and he got up for what I thought was a stretch and he was going to lie down, and he just went over to this man, and this man had a bald head and he licked from his neck all the way up, I'm not even joking you, to the top of his head, like all the way, and just licked the whole of his head and then like turned round. And this man, he was like a big butch man, screamed and turned round. And I was sat there and I was like, and my reaction was literally, I just went, I'm disabled, I'm sorry. And then I was like, he thought it was hilarious, so it was absolutely fine. And he was like, oh, are you training the dog? And I thought, no, the dog's fully trained, like, this is bad, but we'll just say yes. So I was like, oh yeah, he's training to be an assistant's dog. And they were like, oh, he must like bald heads. And I was like, oh, that's a funny joke, let's get out of here. So I got out of there and I thought I would say, and then it happened again. I took my friend who's called Lee. He won Britain's Got Talent, actually. You might know him. He's called Lost Voice Guy. We went to the cinema and there was another guy. Yeah, there's another guy on a sofa in the cinema, which was lower down with a bald head. And I was helping him get his jacket off. And I said to Lee, I said, can you just watch Spencer whilst I help you get your jacket off? Because he likes bald men. And Lee was busy laughing because he couldn't believe that this was happening because I hadn't told him the Starbucks story. And in that time, he dropped the lead. He went over to the bald man and licked that bald man's head. So I had to explain to the other bald man about why my dog likes bald man's head. I don't know what it is about him. But anyways, that is my story about how my assistant's dog likes bald man's heads. So if you're anywhere near me, not that I don't know if any of you know me, and you're bald, don't go down to like my height, like a small height with my assistant's dogs, because he loves licking bald man's heads. And that's it. That's the story.
Sarah, oh my God. Spencer's gonna become one of my new favorite dogs on the planet for that. Oh man, that is. And Spencer, by the way, for everyone who finds Kate on social media, Spent photographs perfectly. So perfection for a dog when he photographs. So I love it. Oh my God. We're gonna, I mean, I would try to find a crafty way to transition out of Spencer licking heads, but I can't think of it in the top of my head. So we're just gonna do a straight transition to our next segment, Path to Power.
Path to Power.
Path to Power is our time we discuss different moments and how-tos of owning your health, owning your career, and owning the things that bring you joy. And for Kate, that is dancing. So we're going to discuss how to create that power within yourself, how to express more power, and build those steps for you to have a path to power. So I know, Kate, you've discussed it quite a bit on other interviews and on your platform as well, that dance was a big part of your life before your chronic illness journey, and even now as you've evolved it into the Kate Stanforth Academy of Dance and teaching wheelchair dance. So what has dance added to your life?
So as you say, it was a huge part of my life beforehand. I was training to be a professional dancer. And when I became chronically ill, I completely disregarded dance. I thought that was pretty much dance over for me. Mm-hmm. And that was mainly because it was emotionally very hard for me to look at. It was hard, like I couldn't even watch it, never mind think about it or dance. But also I was really ill when I first got ill, to the point where I was bedbound and paralyzed at one stage. Like I was really poorly. So the first, I would say, kind of like 6-7 years of my condition, I was total tunnel vision, thinking like, that's it for dance. And I found it very hard, even, probably until the last year or so, even talking about dance, because you probably know that when you've got a chronic illness and you've done something previously, especially when you've done it to a high level or you did it as a hobby regularly, you've got such a big emotional attachment to it, and it reminds you a lot of what you used to, not just what you used to be like, but something that you enjoyed doing. And it was honestly, I would say it was a huge grieving process for me. I had to give up. It was like I had to give up what I used to do. And for me, it took me a long time to have to give up the old dance Kate. And even when I watch videos of myself now, I look at myself and I go, oh, bad technique. Like, no. And like, I'm doing a class at the moment with Matthew Bourne's New Adventures, which is amazing. And I got really frustrated because I couldn't remember the stuff because of my brain fog, couldn't keep up, couldn't do stuff like that. And I'm like, I need to remember that I'm a different person now. And now that I've kind of come round to that in my head, it's become a more empowering thing to me. When I had it in my head that I was still kind of like the old Kate and my old dancing, I was dragging myself down all the time because I was comparing myself to how I was pre-illness. Mm-hmm. But now I'm comparing myself to how I am today. It's a lot better because I wake up and I go, right, well, I dislocated my hip this morning and I'm trying to dance. I did a pretty good job considering how I'm feeling today. Yeah. And I'm not always positive. I get really, really annoyed with myself a lot of the time because I push myself to the nth degree, but I'm still quite mindful about, you do have a chronic condition and mine's lifelong, and I need to come to terms with the fact that if I want to dance and if I want to be in the dance industry, I'm going to have to be a bit kinder to myself and learn how to adapt it. That's my main thing, adapting. So it's becoming a much more positive thing. Dance had become something that was scary and not a good thing for a while, and now it's something that's blossomed into something amazing. So yeah, I love it.
I love that. And I know I even mentioned it when we did our prep call, that for me, my chronic illness journey began because of a competitive sports injury, because I was a competitive tennis player. So even for me, it was probably around the same amount of years. It was about 6 or 7 years after my injury, and that journey began with my chronic illness before I could even watch a tennis match and not get emotional need to turn the television off, because that was such a goal of mine, was to get scouted to play on a university team, maybe try the pro circuit in my early 20s after I graduated. So to have that cut off so quickly was very hard to attempt the sport again. I would have very close to what would be like a panic attack, even attempting to go on a court, because that was what started all of the chronic illnesses that I deal with now. And so it was similarly, I had a doctor of mine wondering why, once my health became a bit more, as he said, it's chronic illness adaptive, I'm able to live around and with my illness instead of it stalling portions of my day to day. And it was when he had asked me, well, why don't you play tennis anymore? You could play in sort of a fun hobby. It could be once a month or so. And I said, well, I remember really having to think about it long and hard. And I remember saying, well, for me, about most of what I loved about tennis was the competitive nature and being the player on my end, and I wouldn't be able to play at the competitive level. And so I would always feel such a negativity for me to go back into the sport. I said, I'm just happy that I can now watch it and enjoy the sport again. And I said, because I knew my favorite thing about the sport was my competitive nature, I said, there's no way I can do the other things that I've now learned to love with that in a playing sense. So, and ironically for me, the first game I ever saw in person again after my injury was a wheelchair tennis match. Was the first physical one I went to. And I remember just kind of standing in the stands. My mom was with me and I got emotional, and you could see some of the like umps on the clay of the tennis court kind of looked up, and people around were, luckily, obviously people watching a wheelchair tennis match are among the community of some nature where they have a connection to the disability sport community. So they could at least feel that connection. And a few people did come up and say, oh my God, did you used to play? And my illness is predominantly invisible. So to watch other people kind of know why I connected to watching it was really nice. And so like, I love that that's sort of a similar thing for you, is being, the big thing I love is being kind to yourself of where you're at physically each day to be able to do it. And I know that's something I wanted to kind of touch on too, was with the Kate Stanforth Academy of Dance, which I know you mentioned to me you put out for virtual classes when you launched this month, and you sold out in a day, right? It was within day one of announcing, which is insane. If we could put in a round of applause, if I had an audience, that would be the moment for it. We'll do it for us. But for you, what's something with your dance academy that you would, with wheelchair dance specifically, that you want to be able to teach to your students?
The main thing that I want to do is just make sure that everybody's included. The dance industry is a tricky one. I honestly feel that it's not very inclusive at all. It's getting better, but it's one of the industries that I think really struggles to include people, especially disabled people. So I just want the Dance Academy to be as inclusive as possible and to give as many opportunities so that anybody who wants to dance will have the opportunity to dance. And yeah, I would just like to be able to teach a whole range of people, but also I want to be like a stepping stone, because it's something that I'm going to talk about in my first session, really, is that if they want to come back month after month and dance with me and they love doing that, that's absolutely fair enough, they can do that. But I also want to be able to build them up so that they have confidence to go to a non-disabled class and they can just go out into the community and dance and have the confidence to do that, because that's what we really should be promoting here. It's all well and good everybody coming to a non-disabled class, but that actually, a disabled class, sorry, but that just divides us even more. And that's it. It's good that we've got everybody dancing, but also what would be great is if some of these people go, right, well, I've done, 6 months with Kate, and now I've learned how I would adapt something which was like a non-disabled street class, and I really fancy going to a street class which is down the road from me. that's what I want to do. I want to be able to teach people how they can develop, and just kind of help everybody else on their way, because that's the main goal. And I'm also hoping eventually to take on some other teachers and teach them in inclusive dance, so that we can just grow the academy, hopefully disabled teachers as well. That's what my hope is, people with disabilities, and train them in inclusive dance, because there's not really anywhere, well, not that many organizations out there which train, you know, inclusive dance in terms of like specifically ballet or different you know, dances. So yeah, I've got lots of ideas, just not enough energy for it. So I'm just gonna see how it goes.
And I love that you said that too, is a big thing, especially when it comes to wheelchair dance that I've heard. I know in the States, one of the biggest, sort of most popular ones is the Rollettes, which are out in California, which have been wonderful seeing them, especially even on social media, seeing them in very popular dance studios, and they're among groups of non-disabled dancers. And it's wonderful that even on social media, those dance studios feel a confidence in how much those dancers are trained to put them in even their social media. But a big thing that I know that you talk about quite a bit, and that I know other dancers with disability have mentioned, is that sort of word of feeling like they're the able-bodied, non-disabled community would say, well, it's you're wheelchair bound, you're less capable because of a mobility aid that you need. And a big thing for you is sort of breaking that stereotype, and even using your dance academy's platform, and having so many people coming in at different levels of their past dance experience, or even being brand new, is going to be something really fantastic for them to realize that even subconsciously those stereotypes don't matter to them, and that there is a lot to just to enjoy the dance class, whether just as an additional hobby or as something to be like, I want to be, if I'm going to, not to put a pun, if I'm going to roll in on an inclusive dance class, I want to be like, yeah, I've had 6 months with the Kate Stanforth Academy of Dance, so I know what I'm doing. I know the terms you're using because Kate said them to me. So I think that's really, I felt that right in my head. I'm like, oh, you can use a pun of rolling in on a dance class. And I was like, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I want. I want the kind of difference that people can just join in for fun, any level, beginner, whatever. But also, one of the classes that I'm due to launch is a much more advanced class with, you know, specific training, which is like advanced ballet class, advanced technique class, so that, you know, people with disabilities can dance. And I'm telling everybody this that I meet in the dance industry. I'm like, you know, there's people who are in wheelchairs who are really talented dancers, and they're like, what really? And I'm like, and the amount of people that get in touch with me and they're like, I'm an ex-dancer, I had to give it up because of my chronic illness, but I'm trying to get back into doing a little bit, but I don't want to just sit in a dance class and do a few claps and a bit of this. And I'm like, yeah, this is a thing, you know, we need the different levels in there. And also there'll be people like me who want to do, you know, something a little bit more advanced and go on to, you know, work with brands or go into a dance school or do a uni degree or stuff like that, but need a little stepping stone in between to gain their confidence. And that's why you need, you know, the different levels of dance, so you can just slide into whatever you want. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping that we'll be able to have a few different levels soon. But the inclusive dance, just the normal level, like sold out so quick that I couldn't even put anything else on. So that was a surprise. But yeah, it's cool. I'm really excited to do it.
I'm not surprised, because your videos of your dance on Instagram, we'll see on IG Reel or on TikTok, are definitely amazing to watch. I know so many people, if we're able to, if you're watching on YouTube, we're going to have a little B-roll of Kate dancing on the side while we're talking about that. But for you, especially in the pandemic, of using the social media apps like TikTok or IG Reel and showing you doing whatever I don't want to say a TikTok dancing trend, but you know, some of them are, and some of them are like classical ballet background of yours, that you're in point shoes and you're doing it the way that you would. How has that been for you to be empowering for you to use social media to show this over the, especially during the pandemic? And then what kind of reactions have you been getting from people about being able to watch your dancing?
Yeah, it's been really fun, to be honest. So as you say, I started posting a bit more at the start of lockdown, and because I started doing a bit more of the trends and people were running some free classes, and it made me kind of dance out of my comfort zone, because I've only ever been classically ballet trained and I don't shy away from that. I'm a classically trained ballet dancer. If I try to street dance, you're only going to get ballet hands. You know, it's something that I do. So I've been trying to make myself, you know, a bit more of a rounded dancer in the process over the past year, because I knew that I was going to launch a dance school. And I wanted to help people do more than ballet, but I wanted to make sure that I would be a good enough teacher to do it, because I know the moves, but also like I don't look very good doing them. So I know what my head's doing, but also not, the execution isn't quite there yet. And I think that's part of the fun in the, hopefully when I launch the dance academy with me, if we're doing street one week, I will be totally honest and say, you know, I'm not a street dancer. This is what you're going to be doing, but I'm probably not going to look very good. Like, if they want to do street, we'll do street. But yeah, I had so much fun, and in general a lot of the comments were quite positive. I have had, you know, a lot of negative comments in the past. I've had people report me before. I've had loads of people, especially when my first Georgia Asda campaign came out, and that was the first time people really saw people getting out a wheelchair on a big social media campaign. That was hard. I got a lot of trolling because of that. And every now and again I'll get somebody who's like, wait, you've stood out your wheelchair. But now I just reply with another video of me standing out my wheelchair. Like, I've worked out how to do it now, because I used to like shy away, or I used to like come back at the trolls, but now I just play on it, and it works so much better. And I think now I've kind of built my platform a little bit more. People kind of know me as the person who gets out the wheelchair. Like, I am the ballerina who dances, but also I'm the person who just stands up occasionally as well. So nobody's really that bothered, which is lovely. And people don't have, you know, a lot of people get so much hate because of that. And when I'm out and about, you know, I do get a lot of hate when I stand up at my wheelchair. We have the old but online, touch words at the moment, it's not too bad, but could all change.
And that even is a perfect transition into our final segment for the show, because as I mentioned, Kate and I, we like to have fun in our day to day, even when there is some negativity and there is sort of the downside of living with chronic illness or disability. We still like to have a fun spin on our serious topics. So we're going to go into our final segment and talk about challenging those haters and gaining that independence with Teeniatric's Way of Life.
Teeniatric Way of Life.
Teeniatric's Way of Life for us is obviously when you're a teen and a young adult, ergo Teeniatrics. For us, you're transitioning and finding yourself and finding your voice. And so we want to be able to use all of Kate's experience being a dance teacher, a model, a disability activist, a founder. We want to be able to use, I know, Kate's all of her experience and use those skills for you guys. So I know even what you were just even talking about as well is sort of responding to negative comments, whether on social media or even in person. As I'll say, especially for ambulatory mobility aid users, I have always had my one first personal experience was a guy telling me that he would be using his wheelchair, and if he stood up and he noticed people's reactions, he said, instead of me becoming a little more sheltered to protect myself, I would respond with making it seem like as if this was the first time I knew I could stand as well, and kind of call them out and be like, do you see this happening right now? And people would get embarrassed for staring or making a comment, and they tend to just leave the awkward situation. So he always said, I'm going to make it awkward for every non-disabled person who stares at me. as my be all. But even I know for you, what are tips that you would suggest for teens and for young people as well, that are either getting comments on social media when they post things about their activism or their day to day, and how they can kind of not get bogged down and deal with those feelings negatively when they get those comments?
I think the first thing is to work out what is negative comments and what is bullying, because there's, you know, a lot of disability hate crime around at the moment, especially with people being in lockdown and not that much to do. The Twitter trolls and the TikTok trolls and the trolls are definitely out there.
Living your best life.
They're just, do you know what? They're just like, so bullying is not okay in any circumstance. So whatever the bullying is, report it, and not just report it to, you know, Facebook and whatever, that, you know, they don't actually do anything. It just goes to like a funny inbox. If there's something really bad in there, you need to report it to the police. And it's important to get these things reported, because something might be done. I'm not going to say it's always going to have, you know, something done about it, but especially in the UK, they do take it quite seriously now, and it always helps with those statistics of disability hate crime and, you know, what are people doing about it. It pushes pressure on. But in terms of negative comments, it's hard to completely ignore them. I know that, because I find it hard to read through and think, oh God, really? But it is kind of important to ignore the majority of them. But if you are going to respond, really think about what you're going to respond. Don't try to get into another argument, because I have got into an argument a lot of times and it's just not worked out well. But at the moment, the advice that I'm giving to people, a lot of it comes about ambulatory wheelchair users. A lot of people are contacting me about that. It was actually a person on TikTok the other day. And I said, look, this girl was getting a lot of grief because she made a TikTok and she moved a leg, and everyone was commented saying like, oh my gosh, she moved a leg, she's definitely faking it, she just wants the followers. And I was like, look, make a TikTok, move both your legs and be like, what? Like, yeah, what? Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm an ambulatory wheelchair user, this what happens, like, get on with it. Went down really well, and then everyone was like, oh, all right then, swipe on. And then they were like, they couldn't care. Like, you've got to remember that, like, stuff like this comes in and out just as quickly. So even though it does affect us, it's just like news one day and then not news the next. So it's hard. Social media is so hard, and for a disabled person, it's our lifeline. And it's hard when we get negative comments, and we'll get a lot of them, but, you know, just, yeah.
And I like how you said too, making that distinction. And I'll always say, especially for teenagers that listen or watch the show, is, and even for people, we have a lot of our global brand leaders are in their mid to late 20s, and they'll even say if a comment kind of hits them deeply, they'll always make sure that they'll have either their line of support, whether it's their partner or their best friend or a sibling or a parent, that they will go to and be like, am I taking this too personally, or is this a bit too much? And when you kind of get that, especially when you get quote unquote healthy non-disabled individuals in your support network that react the same way for you, that really can show the severity of it, of being like, no, we need to kind of take that additional step to being able to protect yourself. Which, even I'll always say, you do realize that for healthy and non-disabled young people, if they get bullying commentary, you would suggest to your friend to do the same thing that they would then now be suggesting to you. It's just that yours deals with your medical situation at the time that makes it sort of a varied difference. So kind of always, like you said, number one, keeping that in mind, and number two, making sure to kind of I always will say, when you get negative comments, 95% of the time it comes from an ignorant standpoint. That's the person writing it has just never seen or experienced it. And that's also due to just us, the chronic illness disability community, not being in the media as much as other individuals. But for them, you can either, like you said, if somebody comments about you moving in your wheelchair, you just put another video right in your comments, so then they're able to get that side by side. So I always will say to people, if you have your pinned comment back to people. I always say in your notes on your phone, have that couple pinned comments that if you want to write to somebody and say, this is actually the reason for it. But like you said, never a good idea to get in a back and forth with somebody you don't know. Not worth it. Like chronic illness people, we don't have a lot of energy to begin with. We're already starting on a half empty tank. So I always say in the grand scheme of affecting your day to day, no, not for that. But something you're a big advocate for is the chronic illness and disability community gaining a sense of independence for themselves and what independence looks like for us, because we do have other people that support us and help us in our day to day. So for young people that are trying to sort of navigate that balance of knowing when to ask for support that they might need for their health, but wanting to still gain independence like their other friends are as they're growing, what are things that have been helpful for you to still feel like you're growing that independence for yourself?
I think for me that I learned that I definitely asked for help and support too late, because I thought that independence meant that I needed to be by myself, when actually it's the total opposite. When you've got a chronic illness, independence means that you are enabled to do things, it's not by yourself. Like, I don't really have an explanation to it, but you're going to have to follow the story along. So basically, when I was 14 when I got ill, and that's a crucial time in anyone's life, because people are making friends, you're at school, you're doing your all your GCSEs and things like that. You'll probably have different exams.
Yeah, SATs, those are a bunch of letters, which means an exam.
Yes. It was a really important time, but I just didn't, I missed all that because I was too ill. And then when I was beginning to get a little bit better, I didn't really want too much support, because I was such an independent person that I was like, I'm going to do it myself and I want to do it this way and stuff like that. But then I started getting carers in, and I had help for, I think it was just my breakfast and my lunch. And I realized that little bit of energy that I saved from actually eating in the morning, because I wasn't eating in the morning because I didn't have anybody to make my breakfast because my parents worked, was really good, and I had somebody to talk to. So I started building up having my carers, and it's got to the point now where I've just hired 2 PAs this week. So I'll have 2 PAs instead of carers. So we work a little bit differently. You can either have a care agency in, or you can have PAs which you hire. So my PAs I've chosen, so I've been able to hire them myself. So they've got like things in common with me. Like one of them really likes art and dance and stuff, and they genuinely seem like really nice people. And when I was having my interview with them, I just said to them, the only thing I want to do is to be able to, I want to be independent, but I also want to just be able to get on with things like everybody else does. And that's why you're there. You're there to support me in being able to just get on with life. And that's what independence is. And it doesn't matter if it's one person or you need 3 people to be able to do it. It's like a whole package a lot of people need. And it's taken me a long time to get my head around, being a 26-year-old woman who needs help, going to places just in case I faint, having, my hair washed. I have to have somebody come in and help me in the bathroom. I have to have loads of stuff that you just is so personal.
Yeah.
And it's really, really hard when you're this young. But then the bigger picture is I get to do what I like doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's especially for people who, as I say, are thinking about getting carers, PAs, assistants, whatever. It's a big step, asking somebody to help you, and especially when you start asking them to help you with, like, can you help bathe me? Can you help cut up my food like my carers do? Can you help, feed me on days that I'm not okay? It's a big thing, but actually that does help you become independent, because you wouldn't be eating without it and stuff like that. So yeah.
And I like that you said that too, is to say, I literally rose my hand while you were speaking, for those who weren't watching, was when you said, I wish I knew that getting support would make me more independent sooner. Than I dug my heels in on asking for help. That felt like I got injured right before my 16th birthday. So I dug my heels in hard, even with my parents helping me, because I said, no, like I need to do all of this by myself, like answer every doctor's question, look at every medical insurance form, I wanted all of it by myself. But then I was so exhausted trying to maintain going to school full time with all of these appointments and procedures and physiotherapy that it just became very hard. And it wasn't until I was in university and in my 20s when I finally just went like, I want to be able to graduate on time. I need help. And having those disability accommodations that other people would have for learning disabilities, they're there for people with chronic illness and disability in a university. It looks different in every country, but it's still sort of formulaic. It's the same somewhat in every country. And being able to be independent enough to walk over to a professor and say, this is what I need to be at the same level of my classmates, made me independent, because I was the one taking charge of my health situation and my daily life situation to ask for those things. And like you said too, you were the one leading those interviews with your new PAs. It wasn't you sitting in another room and your parents were like, let's interview the people for Kate, guys. We're going to pick our top 2 favorites and they will just show up on Monday and see Kate for the first time. You were that was an independent thing for you, which I love you mentioned as well, is taking a driver's seat role in your healthcare or in your day-to-day, and having people around you that add little 5% things to support you to make every day more easy for you. And it's okay sometimes to not ask for help and then realize, I always say sometimes it's fine to make mistakes. I'm 28. There are plenty of times my mom will come home and go, and why did you try to do all of this before I came home? And I'll be like, I just wanted to do it all alone. And my mom's like, you've been sick 13 years. Have we not? We've had this discussion. It's fine to still do that as well. I think that's, like you said, it's a good part of independence, is also making those mistakes. Yours just tend to make you more tired and physically uncomfortable, as I joke, for that. But going to kind of end the episode, and our final question I have for Kate is, especially with maintaining that independence, finding your voice as a young person with chronic illness and disability, what's one piece of advice that you wish somebody went to 14-year-old Kate and said, hey, keep this in mind as you kind of start on this journey with chronic illness?
My main piece of advice would actually just be not to push myself, which is a really weird piece of advice to give. But when I was actually first got ill, there was graded exercise therapy, which was implemented for people with ME. And it's actually still in the guidelines, and it's a really, really dangerous piece of advice for people with ME. And I was pushed with my ME and just pushed physically, but also I pushed myself. It wasn't just the guidelines. I constantly pushed myself. So if I was going to school, I would try push myself to walk, down where everybody else went. I pushed myself really hard in my GCSEs because I wanted to get my perfectionist grades. I wanted to get A stars like I am. I did exactly the same in all my exams. Even now, and I look at myself now and I'm like, Kate, what are you doing? I attend a dance class like I'm doing at the moment, and there's people who are professional dancers in there, and I'm like, I have to keep up. Like, I need to keep up. I need to be the best. And it's not like it's not one of those things where I want to be the best because I want to be better than anyone. It's just, I've got the personality of I need to try my best.
Yeah.
And this is another thing that I've been thinking of so hard about my dance academy, that I want everybody to only give a maximum of 80%. I don't want anybody to give 100% because it breaks people, and it's too much. And I think that's, it's something that we all talk about in chronic illnesses, that when we're told that we've got such a low battery to start off with, and then we shouldn't really run out, because when we run out, it's an issue. And I don't know about you, but my battery runs out all the time because I just get too excited about things. I'll start filming like a TikTok and I'm like, love that dance. I'll do it 10 times because it's just fun. And I just completely flatten my battery, put myself in bed for a few days and then start up again. Booming and busting, it's what you shouldn't do. Like I say to everybody, my way of living isn't the best way of living, but it's how I live and I love it. But it's one of these things where I'm trying to teach other people. I'm like, just don't give it all. and we're all, a lot of people with chronic illnesses are perfectionists, and we have trained in sports where we've been very competitive, like you and I have, and we've all been quite good like education. We've all had, good grades and stuff, and it's really, really hard for us to, join classes or do things and go, right, well, I'm just going to give half of what I should be doing, or I'm gonna, last session that I did, I signed out halfway through because I was going to save my energy, and I just stood and looked at myself halfway through and I was like, oh, you only did half of it. I just didn't know what to do afterwards. And I was like, oh, well done, Kate, you did half. Well done.
I love that. And I think that's a good point to end the episode on. And it's such a good piece of advice as well, is to not push yourself full throttle at 100 at all times. I think that's a great piece of advice. And I'm excited that that's part of your dance academy. And I want to make sure everyone is able to find you, is able to find Project Parent and the Kate Stanforth Academy of Dance. We'll have all the links in the description below. But Kate, let the listeners and viewers know where they can find you and your dance academy and nonprofit online and on social media.
My personal handles are just at Kate Stanforth. So that's on Instagram and Twitter. My handle on Facebook is at Kate Stanforth Public, I think. And you can find a lot of so I've got a website which is www.katestanforth.com. It's all my name, honestly. I've got such bad brain fog. I was just like, just keep it your name, Kate, it'll be fine. So you can book classes and stuff and see a lot about me at www.katestanforth.com. It'll give you a link to my book where you can book my classes. My Project Parent stuff is just at Project Parent, I'm pretty sure. Twitter might be at Project Parent GB, but it'll be at one of the Project Parents. And I think that's about it, really.
Yeah, and all of it, like you said, all will be linked below, and especially all on your website. Everything will bounce to your dance academy and your charity as well, which is fantastic. And like always, you can find InvisiYouth on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at InvisiYouth, and the InvisiYouth Chat Sessions on YouTube for the video show, and on all audio podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, Google, and Stitcher, Deezer, all of that, to be able to listen to the audio podcast. Kate, this was such a blast of an hour. I had so much fun with you. Thank you so much, Kate, for being our guest today. Thank you, everyone who's listening and watching, and I will speak with you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.